Well, hello friends, welcome to Thursday. Here we go, another edition of the Mystery Wine Blind Tasting Experience. Who's with us this evening on this rainy, overcast evening? I'm gonna pour myself a little smell and taste. Robert's with us. Isabel, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Cool. This one is expressive right out of the glass. How's everybody's week been? Deborah, hi, welcome. Susan, hello. I've got the great fortune the last several weeks to seeing you twice a week, which is awesome. Tran, hello, man. Jan, you too. You and Bobby. This is great. And Erica's with us. Rob and Kathy, yes, thank you for that. Kristen, hi there. It feels like fall. I know, we're in the shoulder season at the present moment. This is a challenging time from the restaurant perspective, from a culinary perspective, and in particular a menu perspective. Hi, Kathy and Peg. Kathy, good evening. Kathy, and Erica, hello. We're trying to design menus to still kind of reflect what we have, and we have some peaches and some tomatoes still, and yet it's chilly, and we're starting to see squash, but I don't feel like I want to cook squash yet. We don't want to put that on the menu yet, but we kind of could, and so we're in a mix of that shoulder season. It's a great time of year nevertheless, though. Matthew's with us. Candy, hello. And Erica's with Karina too. Oh, cool, great. So, wow, interesting. Who else? The toppers are here. Hello, hello. Great to see you this evening. This is pretty expressive. What do you think? Candy, Kevin, Kathy. We have like a collection of Kathys on this chat and on this sequence every week, which is awesome. I think that is the most popular name in the run. Speaking of which, Kathy's there with Trish and Andy. Hi, everybody. Well, welcome. Excited to have the opportunity to go through this with all of you. Isabel made chicken to pair with this, I made chicken, so this better pair with it. Got it. Excuse me, I thought you said you already knew that chicken would pair with this, which is pretty awesome that you knew that before trying it. But yeah, I think it might, depending on your preparation. Chicken's a great vehicle for a multitude of preparations, and you can kind of work your way through adjusting a preparation to work with the wine. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that today. The toppers are saying Sauvignon Blanc right out of the gate after first sniff. Yep. Lorna and Craig, hi there. Jan, hello. Thank you for coming in last night. It was great to see you. Carrie is hoping it will pair with her red curry. So that's tough. I don't know, it depends on how spicy the curry is and whether or not you prefer heat. One of the interesting things about food and wine as they match, alcohol makes spice spicier. And so as a wine has a relatively fair amount of alcohol, especially vis-a-vis say something like beer, which has about half or a third as much alcohol, you can make the spicy taste spicier. Yeah. Candy's already thrown us on track, which is good. It's white, it's clear, it's lemon in color. Sorry, Candy, yes, that's great. And Kathy Lang, wait a minute, I missed whatever you were bwahahaing, and I'm sorry, I missed that. I'm getting a white floral note, Erica says, and Karina says maybe jasmine. Yeah, there's a floral quality here for sure, isn't there? My daughter's saying hello this evening. Hi, honey. My wife is watching with her. That's great. Wow, yeah, there is a floral quality. Honeysuckle, I think that's absolutely an opportunity there for sure. So right off the bat, when you get floral, you would probably start to think about an aromatic grape varietal. And Sauvignon Blanc is aromatic for sure, but what other grape varietals would be aromatic? Anybody have any idea? A lot of honeysuckle, some white flowers, green apple being noted, yes. Meyer lemon, mandarin orange, orange blossom, very good. That's great. So some aromatic varietals. Erica, you're hitting on the one that I always think of first when I think of aromatic varietals, even if I'm not necessarily smelling a particular wine, and that's Viognier. Viognier is an aromatic varietal. Muscadet, is another option. Muscat, Muscat. Torrontés, absolutely an aromatic varietal for sure as well. So we could be looking at any one of those. You could have Gewürztraminer, which has quite a bit of aromatics. You could have something like Traminette or Traminer in the U.S. The Davis are with us from Wisconsin, or Jill is. Hi, Jill. And my children, after a full day of virtual learning, are doing some more virtual learning. I would say very important virtual learning, learning the family business. Chenin Blanc has an aromatic quality. I wouldn't call it necessarily or classify that, Jan, as an aromatic varietal. It has a bunch of aroma, but when we say aromatic, and we're talking about usually something floral, something blossomy, some kind of concentrate from something floral. And I'm not exactly sure why that subset of the aromas is given the term aromatic, but when we're talking about wine, that's usually what someone is referring to when they say this is an aromatic varietal. Not saying that all varietals aren't aromatic, they have aromas, so therefore they have an aromatic profile. But an aromatic wine is one that has more of a floral presence and profile too. So we're kind of already talking about an aromatic quality, and someone just noted that it's not getting the rose quality that you might find typically in someone like Traminette or Gewürztraminer. So that's a good indication that while this might be aromatic, it's not necessarily perhaps heading down the direction of Traminer, Traminette, Gewürztraminer, those kind of spicy grape with the rose element. But we can delve further into this. Bonnie's with us and the Grassics are with us. Hi there. Candy's noting that Kathy's getting a more mineral aroma. And I got that too right off the bat. I got a definite kind of muskiness, and I'm still struggling after many years in this to figure out exactly how to determine or define what that aroma is, and I smell it often. It's sort of a mix of a rocky, wet rock kind of mashed with a melon quality, like a musk melon. Susan said she picked up a little bit of asparagus right off the bat, which is interesting. Matthew, Riesling, thank you. Riesling is an aromatic varietal for sure. It spans kind of outside the realm of the other varietals that are almost very identifiably aromatic with floral notes and things, but this is, Riesling has a potential there. This could potentially be Riesling, so we could add that to the mix. And Sharon's with us. Candy's getting a little clover. Matthew's getting tons of green apple. That honeysuckle's there. I'm getting a little spice. Which could take me back to sort of a little bit of maybe that Torontes. Ha, that's great. Chris is Chris is actually presently here enjoying an evening centered around Petit Manseng. So Petit Manseng has a little bit of an aromatic quality to it too, for sure. So this could be potentially that, but I don't think it is. Mineral and grass, Jan's picking up. We've got a fire truck driving by. That's, if you can hear that in the background. Okay, so a ton of aroma, right? So this is really expressive as we work our way through the grid, right? This is a very expressive wine. No doubt about it. It's clear. It's got a little lemony quality to it. Does it look like it has, let's look at the appearance for a second. We've been working the nose a lot, but does it look, mine was quite chilled and it's frosting up here in the humidity of the room, but does it look like it has a lot of alcohol? When we're looking at a white wine in particular, looking for sort of how those tiers or legs fall, that would give you perhaps an indication of maybe where it's coming from. Is it cooler climate or warmer climate? And by that I mean, does it take a while for those tiers to form and then for them to fall into legs? And if it does, it's an indication perhaps of higher alcohol or some residual sugar. And Caroline, hello, welcome. And Christine, hi, how are you? Hopefully you've enjoyed your birth week. So this doesn't necessarily to me show a whole bunch of texture or viscosity, and therefore medium weight, maybe lightweight wine. Don't know that yet, but it's not, I'm not getting a clear indication of something from the visual of the wine and what it looks like. It doesn't smell sweet per se. It has some sweet aromas like the honeysuckle that we've noted before, but I'm not like perceiving this to be kind of a sweet wine or an off-dry wine, but we'll have to verify that on the palate. So let's taste. So first taste, we always want to jump in right and determine whether what we've just smelled is there, but control yourself for a second and just work on the taste. Is this a rich wine? Does it have a full body? Is it a medium-bodied wine? Is it a light-bodied wine? What's the tannin like? Is there any? In white, you're almost assuming that there isn't, but there might be some, and that could be indicative of something. What's the acidity like? And how long is the finish? And that's kind of determined by short finish, sort of 10 seconds or less, a medium finish, sort of 30 seconds or less, or something that goes on and on and on. And hey, Ross, how are you? Welcome, man. Thanks so much for being with us. Ross's wife does a tremendous job with her program each week, each night. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. So if you enjoy wine programs in this COVID age, it emerged from that point, and I think it will go long after that point. Christy does a wonderful job of educating you by interviewing people all over the wine world. And she has a lot of wine friends around the wine world, so it's a great program. And Kristen, I agree, it's quite acidic. This is medium body, as Jen's pointing out. Off dry, yeah, you think? I'm not sure about that. I'm gonna go back and verify that myself. I'm on the fence. It's well balanced for sure. Very little tannin and a pretty high, medium plus to high acid. Medium plus acidity, yeah, we're getting that from everybody here. The acidity makes you thirsty. There's a quality of minerality that sort of seems to pair well with that acidity to just spike this thing. A bunch of green apples still coming through on the palate, and it's making me salivate. Let's go back to the idea of whether or not this is off dry. So you generally get an indication of whether it's off dry or dry on the finish, and whether or not there's a little bit of residual sugar there. And there could be just a hint here, huh? It's fascinating because there's an interplay between that acid and, like, as the acid lingers, I think the finish is short, and the finish is more about flavor than it is about the experience of taste or the experience of a sweet or a sour profile. But the acid is lingering for sure for a long time. And just before that finishes, there's like a hint of a sweetness. And I don't know whether that's alcohol or residual sugar. I wouldn't call this a very dry wine, and I wouldn't call this an off-dry wine that has an intentional kind of quality of the residual sugar. It has somewhere in the middle of both. There's some greenness, a bit of grassy notes, minerality and honeysuckle aromatics coming from Kathy and quite a few others. Isabel noted that there's a little bit of tartness, and I think that's the case. The fruit here is a little bit on the underripe side, right? So green apple, a tart quality. It's not expressively tropical necessarily, so like we would find potentially in Riesling or in Petit Manseng, as even Chris was jokingly throwing out there. It's not something that would give you an indication of a warmer climate that has a riper profile. So this is a wine that maybe a tiny bit cooler climate, moderate climate. The acidity is so high that, yeah, it makes me start to think about like our initial kind of pin ideas of the grapes that it could be. Viognier was the one of the first ones we threw out, and Viognier doesn't have a very high acidity. It has an aromatic profile that we kind of outlined. Not so much about the green apple, but it would have some of that acidity, but not this level, like moderate maybe acidity. And Jan, awesome call on sushi wine. This would be tremendous with that. Oh gosh, we got some outrageous ginger in today from Sunnyside Farm in Rappahannock, who we work with all the time. And I've never really had, I don't think, an actually fresh harvested ginger. I've had ginger from Asian markets and from other markets that has a dried brown skin and has a profile that's gingery, but this had just an aromatic explosion that's a little bit reminiscent of this, but would have been super fun with that grated on some sushi and this wine. That would have been delicious. And the toppers are taking back the Sauvignon Blanc, yes. Yeah, it's got a little greenness, but it's more on the green, kind of tart green apple element, a little less about the grassiness for me. But I'm not finding Viognier in this glass now. Welcome, Tim. Hello, how are you? Whew, I don't know. I don't know what this is right now. Sometimes there's a point at which I'm like, I have a clear sense, I think, of what this is, and then I want to work my way through all the things that it might not be to verify or not. So What are you guys thinking? We thought Sauvignon Blanc, we thought Viognier, that's kind of out. Erica and Karina, excuse me, is throwing out Pinot Grigio. Yeah, I mean, maybe. Pinot Grigio, I usually get a different color, a little bit more of a kind of a deeper color. Isabel's throwing out Riesling and Pinot Gris. It could be the Pinot Grigio. Yeah, you know what, it has an aroma that now it's kind of settling into that. I don't recall ever really getting kind of that honeysuckle from Pinot Gris, but I could be wrong about that for sure. Maybe we're talking about kind of Alsatian Pinot Gris. Muscadet, interesting call, an interesting idea for sure from Anne. And melon is coming out, so Candy, you're absolutely right. This would be great with goat cheese. Really a great wine. High acid wines are really tremendous with fresh cheeses that have a lot of tang to them. They do remarkably well. Gruner Veltliner, that's a good, interesting idea too. We did a Gruner before. Remember, it had a little bit more of that white pepper and a character like that. I'm kind of. That musky melon element is still really present for me. And spice is coming on a tiny bit more for me right now, which I'm getting, and by spice, more like allspice. A hint of that for me. Welcome, Olivia. And Isabel, thank you. Yes, Tony and Julie are doing a great job selecting wonderful wines. Wanda, Emily, welcome. Glad you're watching. And Joanne. Wow, this is a lot of acidity. Super fresh. What do you think, folks? Pinot Gris? So if it was Pinot Gris, where would it be coming from? What can we think about Pinot Gris to determine, where can we find Pinot Gris that would give us this? Old world, new world. Pinot Gris, also the gray Pinot, or Pinot Grigio in Italian. So, Candy's also thrown out Chenin Blanc or Semillon. Chenin Blanc absolutely could be in the running with the high acid for sure. Texturally, I don't know that it's as textural as all that, but it could be. Can we eliminate Albarino and Vino Verde? Vino Verde, I don't see any little bit of that spritz or bubble. Possibly, it has a lot of that green quality. Albarino is a potential possibility there. New Zealand is very interesting from the Pinot Gris perspective, and Pinot Gris, of course, from France, which would come from Alsace typically. You find Pinot Gris in the northern part of Italy. Kristen, you're saying New World. Okay. Where would you think New World? I think it's got a really lovely quality of acid that just is so persistent. And the aromatics, are they still there for you? Are they still as pronounced? I might be becoming just adjusted to them, but they're moving a little bit more savory than they are maintaining for me the floral quality. Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand is just thrown out. Chenin Blanc. I think Isabel threw out there earlier too that we could be talking about Pinot Gris from Oregon, which that's a good call for sure. Yeah, and you could get a lot of that high acid, some of that texture. I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. I was thinking about, for just a second there, say Ferment from Hungary. Ferment is a grape that can give you some texture. I think usually a little bit more texture than this, and some acidity. But I do like the idea of sort of a Willamette Valley Pinot Gris. That's a nice idea. We get a little bit of that saline quality, right? A little bit of that sea influence. We get higher acidity. Isabel, yeah, Tokai. In Tokai, you'd find sweet wine produced with botrytis, and one of the grapes that would be used to make Tokai is called Ferment, and the other one is Herselevelu, which is one of my favorite grapes to talk about, or at least just to say. I don't know much about it, but I would be happy to say it over and over again. Jessica is with us. Thank you, Jessica, for joining us. Yeah, and Kathy, I mean, I felt like we have to kind of at least work our way through and just say, does this, without even having to talk about a specific varietal other than perhaps Pinot Grigio, does this taste Italian? We've talked about that before, and there's something about certain wines that just seem Italian. This doesn't strike me as particularly Italian. Kevin, I like the idea of Australia too. I was thinking about, earlier on someone threw out kind of Riesling and whether or not we would be talking potentially about dry Riesling from, say, the Clare Valley or the Eden Valley, something like that, where you just get this ripping acidity. Remember the Semillon we tried from down in Australia, the Hunter Valley Semillon, which had a fantastic quality of lime and a wonderful texture that was subtle. Like it was a this isn't going to sound great, but more of an anemic quality of texture, but just this lengthy acidity. This kind of reminds me of that acidity, and could be sort of that mineral-driven Riesling. Jan's picking up a cool note now with ash. Yeah, Robert, I don't know that this is Italian. I mean, Italian's going to have this acidity, but you want like a little bit more body, a little more stuffing. Usually there's almost an oily viscosity to Italian wines. Again, we're just broadly generalizing and not talking about a specific varietal, but generally I think that's what we find when we're like, I'm not sure which Italian varietal, but it has texture, it has acidity, it has some freshness, it has an intrigue with some mineral quality perhaps, but it's not striking me that way. That's kind of why I like the Oregon Pinot Gris call too. This wine is as enjoyable as it is with its acidity and kind of its persistence. It is, it's kind of simple in a pleasant way that oftentimes we find a little bit more dimension from the old world than we do the new. It's not an IPA, and it is not, I just saw a note flash from the Antarctic, so that's good to know. Duly noted and agreed. Roland, hello sir, good evening, how are you? IPA, no. I love that about this, this group, that we can rule out certain things right away, IPA included. Every week about this point, wines begin to change, right? 20 minutes seems to be kind of a key part, sort of witching hour for wines. As they begin to flesh out a bit, they change or morph from their initial presentation to a secondary presentation or characteristic, series of characteristics. And this one, yeah, there's like a little talc powder and like the powder that you'd find on the outside of a Smartie. And there's that tart fruit quality to this, a little bit of candied fruit, but more of that artificial fruit element and a powdered quality here that's a form of minerality, I guess, in a way. And Isabel, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I thought that for a brief second and just kind of passed by. Her thought here is, with all the green apple, should we talk about Chardonnay, and should we talk about Chablis in particular, which is a great tell for Chablis, and high acid and a minerality, and absolutely we should consider that. This could be Chablis. I would be shocked, right, if we were to just call this Chablis. It would be hard to call this Chablis with the honeysuckle and with the profiles of kind of the aromatics that we were considering right off the bat. It was so aromatic that we were going to call this an aromatic varietal, and now it's not particularly an aromatic varietal, and Chablis is 100% in the running. That minerality, that the flintiness right now, all of that green apple. It's beginning to flesh out a little bit more. Wow. So we're all over the map, guys. We're in Australia considering Riesling, or perhaps even Chardonnay from Australia, something like the Mornington Peninsula, more of a stainless steel type production. What if we're considering something like Pinot Gris from Alsace, for example, Pinot Gris from Oregon? And no, Isabel, that's okay. It's good to add, and then we'll try to work our way out of those things. We're considering some Italian varietals. Perhaps we're just talking about Pinot Grigio more from the north. Like maybe we're thinking about Pinot Grigio here from Alto Adige, or from a place cooler and more mountainous, and it gives us that kind of that quality. Again, I don't think we have enough texture per se, but and I agree, Kathy, it's not usually as aromatic. Chablis generally isn't as aromatic as this wine was present in the beginning. But this is, I have the overriding sense already that I'm not necessarily going to get this wine, and that'll be cool because I'll learn something about it, where that green apple meets a little bit of spice, meets a lot of melon now, and a mineral kind of powdery mineral quality with just tons of acid. It is, I mean, salivating. All right, folks, let's start to dwindle this down. We rule out Chablis. I mean, from the blind context, what we described in the beginning should rule out Chablis. But I don't think you would lose points by saying, I smell mineral, I smell and taste green apple, and therefore the textural element gives me sort of like a basic village, basic AOC, Chablis, good producer, kind of a cooler year, not quite as ripe of a year. So you could say that and do well. I think I could comfortably say that I'd have to put Chablis aside. I don't think this is Chablis. Is this Australian Riesling, for example? And the acidity matches, but I'm not certain that the aromatic profile that we outlined in the first part would. And so I can kind of walk away from that. Is this Oregon Pinot Gris? And that's very interesting. Is it Muscat, say from Spain or from Hungary? Hungary makes an interesting Muscat that could be very acidic and bright. Krista's throwing out Pinot Blanc from Oregon. Pinot Blanc's another varietal for sure that we could be talking about. Just crazy, persistent acidity. I keep saying that. Apologies for that, but I mean, if I don't keep my mouth closed, I'm going to drool. I'm tasting a bunch of acid. So, Amanda, hi there. Welcome. What do you think? Kevin and Candy are planting a flag in the Eden Valley in Australia with a Riesling. That's an awesome call. I think the Eden Valley sits above the Barossa Valley in South Australia, and you get just cooler days and nights. You don't get the Barossa Valley floor heat, and you get wonderful minerality, a lot of acidity, just crazy acidity. The Clare Valley too just gets you just these powerful, precise, enduring Rieslings of great acidity. Kathy's throwing out an Italian something, ugh. Isabel's throwing out another grape with the promise that she'll stop. I don't think you will. Of Peak Pool, and that's an interesting idea. A lighter bodied wine, right? With these aromatics, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I've had a handful of Peak Pools, of course, and I don't know that. Like the acidity on Peak Pool for me is just a little less persistent. It's present and it's refreshing, but it's not quite as nervous and as intentional. This is just defining. I find the Peak Pool's acidity is more like pleasant and enjoyable and informs the wine in a way that makes it cheerful. This one is more like, I am acidic, and you will accept that. This is powerful in that regard. Yeah, you know, Isabel, like there's a time when certain wines are acidic, but the acidity lifts, and the acidity bolsters, and the acidity drives flavor, and it's not like the star of the show. This one is like, to me, the aromatics was definitely what I thought would dominate the wine by way of the nose. When we tasted it, boom, it moved into just the acidity kind of driving the wine and being the wine, and then everything else is sort of just hanging on. So my call, yeah, for lack of a better call at this point, I'm going to go Willamette Valley Pinot Gris. I still think the acidity might be a little bit too strong for that, but Erica, we didn't necessarily blow out Chenin Blanc. I'm sorry. We should have. I don't know that we got sort of the lemon curd, lemon, lanolin, waxy element, and I don't know that we got enough body weight for this to be Chenin Blanc. We definitely got the acidity of Chenin Blanc. So I think it would be a bit bigger. I think we would have gotten more kind of ripe apple, not green apple, to call it Chenin Blanc, unless it's kind of a lighter, earlier pick kind of Chenin Blanc that it could be. So I'm gonna stick with New World, Oregon Pinot Gris, present vintage, sort of 2018. That'll be my guess. Let's check it out. I don't know if it would be in that kind of bottle shape. We'll see. It's got a screw cap, so Trebbiano d'Abruzzo. This is an Italian white from 2018 from Abruzzo. Trebbiano, a grape that Kathy's just throwing out Gavi, Cortese, or Trebbiano, or Falanghina. Yeah, that's where we're at. Trebbiano is interesting because it's a grape that's kind of grown all over the place. It crops a lot, so it doesn't necessarily give you a lot of yield. I mean, it gives you a lot of yield, so it doesn't give you concentration, doesn't give you an intensity. But boy, did this have some acidity. How cool, right? That's something good to know. Trebbiano, fresh, vibrant, and bright. Yep, Kathy, you threw out another good one this week in terms of kind of at least calling that this is Italian. I wasn't ready to stick with it for the textural quality, but if we're talking about, say, Gavi and Cortese, I think we would have gotten more weight. And Falanghina, we've gotten more weight and some of that oiliness that we kind of talked about earlier. But Trebbiano gives us just sort of that persistent acidity and a really nice, kind of refreshing, fun wine at 12.5% alcohol. So the toppers need another bottle. We can help you with that always. So great one this week, folks. I love, like I said, I love when we don't get it and that we get close and learn something along the way. So we add to our pantheon another varietal that, to be honest, I've tried a handful of Trebbiano. I just don't drink it with regularity, and so it's great, as is all of the wines that we get to try in this, to try something that I wouldn't have otherwise picked probably on my own. So to all of you, I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you back here on Thursday. Cheers, everybody.